He's arrived before time. And now the docking is complete. There will be a formal ceremony of welcoming them by those of the astronauts who are already stationed there. And then, of course, the process of, because that is going to happen after maybe 60, 90 minutes, the proper entrance. Right. And after the entrance, they have arranged a formal ceremony to welcome them. But there 7 of them are already there, so this is the addition of 4.
All right, joining us and reporting on this story continuously is Srishti, who is joining us live on the broadcast as well. Srishti, before we deep dive into what happens now, which is of course an equally critical phase, take us through why the docking was such a fragile procedure and what were the challenges that have now been surpassed.
Right, Akansha. So, docking is that critical exercise which actually happens, which is the most important step that actually happens when the spacecraft reaches the orbit. And as we explained before, that there are series of steps. It is done in a phased manner because if you remember over the last few hours, as we were tracking the updates, Dragon spacecraft, as it drifted through space, it was at varying altitudes, and then it kept on swinging up and down the International Space Station. There was a point where it was hovering above the International Space Station. It had to be brought down. The boosters were fired, the thrusters were fired, and then it kind of aligned with the International Space Station. There was a soft capture, the hard capture, and so there has to be a lot of precision involved here, and most of the work is done by onboard computers. So it becomes automated, although the monitoring is continuously being done by the 4 crew members aboard Axiom 4 as well as the ground teams there. So definitely a lot of critical steps which are to be taken in order to get the docking right. So far we have got the docking right, the soft capture, the hard capture, all the 12 hooks have kind of latched onto the International Space Station perfectly. Now that intensive process of pressurizing the vestibule so that the pressure is actually the same at the International Space Station and the Dragon capsule. So when the hatches are opened, the crew can actually enter the International Space Station. As of now, the ISS is kind of orbiting over the Indian Ocean. It takes about roughly 90 minutes to orbit the Earth. So this process will continue, and after that we'll have some welcome remarks exchanged between the crew members.
Absolutely. Take us through those moments till those welcome remarks actually arrive and viewers get to see that we are being told that they've been greeted already by the 7 Expedition 73 crew members. What is happening perhaps right now as the docking now is complete, that too before time, as Mr. Jiten Singh was highlighted?
I'm sure there's a lot of excitement, like Peggy Whitson, who heads the human spaceflight program at Axiom Space. She has gone to space multiple times. In fact, this is her second space flight with Axiom, and she has flown, I think, 3 times with the NASA before. But she's flying with 3 other crew members who are on their first ever space flight. So definitely a memorable experience for them. And on the International Space Station, we already have 7 astronauts. I think 3 of them are from NASA, 1 representing Japan Space Agency there. There are 2 from Russia as well.
Yes.
So the moment, if you remember, the moment the Dragon capsule, docked with the International Space Station, the communication link was established. Peggy Whitson announced that Grace is happy to be on Harmony. So Grace is basically the name of the SpaceX Dragon capsule, and Harmony is the port where the where it has docked, and they welcomed. Right. And so it was a happy and exciting moment.
Let's talk about this very proud and historic moment for India, Srishti, because let's not forget that we are looking at the first Indian to step onto ISS, of course, the second in space. But having said that, Shubhanshu Shukla is someone who hails from Lucknow. His family has been very closely monitoring his movement, as well as is very apparent in the visuals that have been coming in ever since the space flight actually took off. So give us a sense of the excitement that you were talking about, not just in his hometown or in his family, but remember there's ISRO's contribution as well, and Prime Minister Modi, and of course the entire government.
Definitely. I mean, what's most important is that this moment is coming after almost 41 years. I mean, there were not many people who were around when cosmonaut Rakesh Sharma went into space. I was not here, but we all are getting to witness this important moment. And ISRO is definitely leading this collaboration because it's a private space collaboration, as we highlighted before. Axiom Space is a US based space agency. And we decided to have this collaboration because we wanted one of our astronauts to get that kind of exposure and training for a space flight before we undertake the Gaganyaan mission, which is scheduled to take off in the year 2027. So it's not just the family members of Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla who are eagerly waiting to see him at the International Space Station, but all the Indians. For them, it's a big moment. This is our first time to be at the International Space Station. ISRO is looking forward to conducting those experiments also. Remember, these experiments are also coming from different scientific institutes across the country. So once that data comes in, it will also help them to understand microgravity better and conduct those series of experiments at the International Space Station. Not just for India, as we highlighted before, Hungary and Poland, the people there are also looking keenly at this mission because it's also their return to human spaceflight after decades.
Think that this is going to be the first human spaceflight after decades for India, but how important it is and why is it so historic when we are talking about how this is the first time an Indian is stepping on to ISS?
Yes, so I think first of all it's very important for us to understand that this is a private space flight collaboration. ISRO has invested about 550 crore in getting this collaboration right because we have a high stake mission which is Gaganyaan, scheduled to take off in the year 2027. ISRO had already shortlisted 4 Gaganyaan astronaut designates, including Group Captain Shukla and Group Captain Nair, who remain standby for Axiom Mission 4. This mission really gives a lot of exposure to the ISS facilities, to the facilities at NASA, which helps us, our astronauts, really gear up for the human space flight Gaganyaan. Apart from that, an important point is that Group Captain Shukla has also been serving as the main pilot aboard this space flight. So he's really in the driver's seat, which we might get to see again when Gaganyaan actually takes off 2 years later.
Right. Stay with me, Srishti. We are also joined in by our guest. Let me quickly bring in our guest. But before that, let's also give you a quick recap of these live visuals that we are playing out on your screen as the docking has finally completed of Axiom 4, as this very critical phase has now been successfully completed. And as what we are being told by Mr. Jitendra Singh, the Science and Technology Minister, that this is much before time. Let me quickly bring in Dr. Venkateshwara Sharma, who is the former Deputy Director at ISRO. Many thanks to you, Mr. Sharma, for joining in. Dr. Sharma, if you could, first of all, to begin with, give us a sense of what's happening now that very critical docking phase is over. Help our viewers understand what's happening on the screen.
Well, good evening to you and to the viewers. Congratulations once again to 140 crore citizens of this country who kept faith in ISRO and the Department of Space Program for doing all these experiments. And it is because of them that we are today in a situation to take a decision to send an astronaut to space using Axiom, SpaceX and NASA capsule. Having said that, of course, we have completed 29 hours of time of critical time we have completed, and we have come to a situation where the docking has happened, where initially it was soft docking, then the ruggedization happened, the entire information was available on our console, and the ruggedization has happened, and the confirmation has come from 8 sensors, actuators, and the cameras that everything in the docking is successful. Now, the hatchet of the ISS and the Crew Dragon has to open, and this process of hatchet, we call it as hatchet opening, takes about 2 hours to 2.5 hours time. Now that the docking is successful and all the interfaces are in order, now then there is what is called a sequence of events which takes place in before actually opening the hatchet, Crew Dragon hatchet. once the Crew Dragon hatchet is, door is open, the 4 astronauts will be coming into what is called as airlock room, what we call it as the transit room. It is technically we call it as airlock room, but people call it a transit room. People call it as makeshift room, etc., etc. But there is what we call it as dress down for the 4 astronauts, where their vitals will be monitored. They will be, sort of given a meal, and they will be completely made prepared to enter into ISS, where we generally see how the astronauts enter, and they will be received by the Crew Dragon. The ISS astronauts who are already present in ISS. They will be received.
Right.
And
and that's why I want to bring you in. These 7 members of the Expedition 73 crew members, as you rightly highlighted, are already inside. And what will their role be? Shed light and perhaps also dichotomize on how this will now shape up with the entire Expedition 73 team.
Look, this, ENIS program, for that matter, is a continuous handshake between every agency involved. For example, in the ground, we have the ISS, ISS station, and we have Crew Dragon station. Then we have even the launch vehicle station, which are continuously interacting with ISS. And there is interaction between ISS and the Dragon capsule, electronically, mechanically, and also interaction between the astronauts take place. The continuous exchange of parameters in terms of the technical parameters in terms of pressure, temperature, volume, and the various computer-related parameters, we call it as the housekeeping parameters, are all shared with the ISS. Accordingly, the ISS parameters are all shared with the Dragon capsule. And the job, please remember, we have a commander and we have a captain. So the job of the commander and the captain is to analyze those data. Of course, there is support from the ground in terms of the mission control centers, etc. And the interaction between the astronauts, inside and in ISS and the Dragon capsule is continuous. Specifically, the captains and the commander, and they will ensure that all the parameters are stable, fit for opening the hatchet of the Dragon, and then bring them to the airlock room, then dress down. And,
absolutely. So as we can see, the entire welcome crew has actually assembled at the hatch. As Dr. Sharma has been rightly highlighting, they will now be opening the hatch, and then they'll be welcoming our astronauts as well. Having said that, as you can see, the successful docking has already happened of the spacecraft, and they are inside the ISS now. History already in the making. Going to request Dr. Sharma to continue staying with us. Let's also listen in to these live visuals that are being streamed from the ISS.
Docking of Axiom Mission 4 to the orbiting laboratory occurred about an hour and 10 minutes ago at 5:31 a.m. Central, and since then the crews for both station and inside Dragon have been going through those procedures and making sure everything is as it needs to be, including the proper leak checks and stowage from both perspectives, before continuing on with hatch opening procedures and welcoming remarks. We'll continue to provide updates, and you'll hear calls on the big loop of all 4 parties: NASA's Mission Control in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, SpaceX in Hawthorne, California, and the teams and the Expedition 73 crew aboard the International Space Station, and Axiom Mission 4 aboard the Dragon and Grace
Dragon, Houston spacecraft. On the big loop. Stand by for hardline audio config.
Dragon copies.
The hatch opening procedure is currently underway as the 7-member Expedition 73 team has currently gathered from inside the ISS. This is only to open the hatch and welcome the 4 astronauts on board the spacecraft. Now, what we can tell you is that this should take some time before the welcome remarks are delivered by the entire team. Let's also listen in again.
Inside of the Dragon spacecraft, and that was on their ride to the International Space Station. They'll also check some vent valves as we go, and maybe need a little bit more time on board, but these last final checks are crucial to make sure everything is good to go, since it will remain docked to the International Space Station for nearly 2 weeks.
The ISS announcements coming in, they are saying that the team will be there for 2 weeks. As we all know, a host of experiments, close to 60 of them will be conducted. 7 of them will be the ones which have been designed by ISRO. And to give you a sense of what they are going to be, they will be conducting studies on diabetes, even microbacteria. And with this mission, Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla of India's ISRO becomes only the 2nd Indian to travel to space, and Rakesh Sharma after Rakesh Sharma, and the 1st Indian to reach the ISS in 4 decades. I quickly go back to Dr. Sharma for his thoughts on what's happening, and apart from the fact that there will be a host of experiments that will be conducted. Dr. Sharma, if you could please shed light on the contribution that ISRO is making in these experiments that are going to be conducted.
If you ask me, the entire exercise of sending an astronaut itself is a very big experiment for us, and very big learning experiment for us, for the simple reason, for the benefit of viewers, we selected the 4 astronauts in the year 2019, and we have been training them very thoroughly, and we have selected the best of the best group captains from the Air Force, so that they are already on the pedestal, and they have been trained thoroughly at Russia in the Grau Cosmos Astronaut Training Center. Then we have established an astronaut training center in India, Bangalore, for training these astronauts mentally, physically, psychologically. Of course, I can keep talking about it for hours and hours, but there is a lot of exercise which has gone into, and then they have been trained at NASA Astronaut Training Center for taking up space journey. Having completed that activity, it was a necessity for us to send one of the astronaut to in a proven rocket such as Falcon 9, and a proven crew module such as the Dragon capsule, and have that as a first-hand experience, since our Gaganyaan mission is scheduled to be launched in 2026 and 2027. And Shubhanshu Shukla is one of our astronauts who is also a leading astronaut. He has been chosen as the captain for this mission to ensure that we have the first-hand information and the knowledge of his journey from the training to takeoff to now the docking and entering into ISS and doing the experiments. Having said that, now we are in a stage where in another 2 hours the astronauts will be dressed down, and then they will be completely prepared, and there is what is called as hatchet opening procedure, where the astronauts will be completely physically, mentally, psychologically ensure that they are fit to enter into ISS. And once they enter into ISS, next 14 days are crucial for Shubhanshu Shukla for doing experiments. 60 experiments are planned. One is doing experiment. Second one is the interaction with the student is also planned, which is going to be a very big motivating factor. Even though this mission for ISRO, for technical people, for DOS, and for this country, spacefaring country, is a technical knowledge required. It's also that it's a big motivational exercise for the students, and there is going to be interaction with the politicians and the bureaucrats. And out of experiment part of it, 60 experiments are planned. There are 30 countries which have contributed, and 7 experiments are specifically to be done by Shubhanshu Shukla. And as has been rightly pointed out earlier also, there is what is called as vegetation. See, finally, intention is that when an astronaut goes into space, can he grow a vegetable himself? And if the vegetable is grown there in microgravity, how good or how bad is it compared to Earth? Is something which we have to learn.
Dr. Sharma, I'm going to request you to continue staying with me. Let me quickly bring in correspondent Srishti, who's also joining us live from the newsroom. She's been very closely tracking all the developments there. Srishti, to also shed light on what's happening right now on this moment, but also to loop our viewers in with regards to the role that Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla is going to be playing in the days ahead, which is going to be a very significant one indeed.
Definitely, Akansha. So Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla is a test pilot in the Indian Air Force, and he's one of the Gaganyaan astronaut designates. On this particular flight, he's serving as the main pilot. Now, Peggy Whitson, who is a former NASA astronaut, is the commander, while Group Captain Shukla is serving as the pilot. The two other astronauts, one from Hungary and one from Poland, they both are mission specialists who will also be conducting series of experiments during this 14-day period. And as you talked about earlier, the 7 experiments which were shortlisted by ISRO will also be conducted by Group Captain Shukla. So he'll be definitely collecting a lot of data for our scientists back home who are really keen to study about what it's like to be in microgravity. And these experiments are, they range across multiple domains. They want to really understand about what is the cognitive impact of the screens on astronauts. They also plan to grow seeds in microgravity and study microalgae and cyanobacteria. So all these things will really help us understand the astronauts, what impact do astronauts observe once they are in microgravity for a very long period of time. So a lot of crucial data coming in from there, and I think it's also a good moment for us to remember that all these 4 crew members had developed a lot of good camaraderie during this extended duration of quarantine. Remember, this mission got delayed, I think, 5 times. So they have been in quarantine for almost a month now. So, and back home also, apart from Group Captain Shukla, who's definitely got this opportunity to be on this important flight, we have 3 other astronaut designates for Gaganyaan, including Group Captain Nair, who was on standby for Axiom mission, then Group Captain Ajit Krishnan and Group Captain Angad Pratap. The 3 astronaut designates apart from Group Captain Shukla, who have also been aggressively training since India announced its Gaganyaan program.
Stay with me, Srishti. I want to quickly bring Dr. Sharma in. A very important point you just reminded all of us, which was the delays prior to this space lift finally taking place. So, Dr. Sharma, those delays that Srishti also highlighted is what's making this moment extremely surreal right now. And what makes it extremely special is the kind of risks that this entire team has overcome to get there.
Look, I myself had been involved in, training these astronauts during 2019 when they came up, and our intention had always been mentally, physically, psychologically, they should be fit. Okay, and space is, uncertain, and it is known, and there are no way that anybody can take any chances, because the space is one field where you are not excused for any mistake, even it could be simplest of the simple mistake. The space will punish you to the core. Having said that, these people are trained to be, isolated themselves for months and months together, and it is not that they, they use that time usefully for learning many things and contributing to their, the activities which are scheduled to come. It is. The example, the most important example I would like to recall is that of Sunita Williams, where she was supposed to have gone for 6 days, and it happened that she has to be there for more than 330 days. It's all a known story. But if you see, even though the physical, psychological condition health, but when she returned, I wanted to recall that moment when she said that I am going back to Earth from ISS after 336 days. I am going to miss this ISS. Given a chance, I would like to come back. Please see the type of resilience, the mental resilience they would have built in, and that is the type of training that we are giving it to astronauts to ensure that whatever the condition it may be, they will not lose their cool, they will not lose their heart, and they will be resilient, and they will use the time, whatever is there, maybe quarantine time or anything like that, more usefully to read, learn, practice, exercise, and there are several exercises which are taught to them to see that they keep themselves engaged. They are completely disconnected from social media. They are completely disconnected from the outside world, and it's extremely difficult. Please remember when we had the COVID during 2018-19, when the families were supposed to have quarantine. Please recall how for 1 week, if we were to be quarantined, how the family used to be feeling very difficult. And such is the case for the astronauts, where they have to stay away from the family, away from public, away from everybody for months and months and months, and they have to do something which is very special and specific. This is one part. Other challenge is also. Please
I'm so sorry to interrupt you there, Dr. Sharma, because we also have these visuals being live streamed from the ISS. Let's also listen into what's happening. A lot of hustle bustle inside the spacecraft. Let's quickly listen in. Photographer over there, the photographer is going to in fact be part of the crew of 7 from Expedition 73, who will be welcoming, once this hatch actually is opened, to welcome the astronauts. This is indeed a historic mission, and all of those crew members of Expedition 73 trying to open the hatch, which is going to take some time, but the photographer also is very much present before these astronauts are welcomed, and then they will be also delivering their welcome note. But these are live visuals coming in from ISS. Listen in.
Houston, in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, as we are looking live inside of the International Space Station as NASA astronauts Nicole Ayers and Anne McLean, alongside with Commander of Expedition 73 and JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi, going through a hatch opening procedures. And there you can see as the team has worked together to open up that A-pass hatch and continue on with those procedures to welcome aboard eventually the Axiom Mission 4 crew, with the welcome remarks.
Houston Station on the big loop, the A-pass hatch is open and no condensation observed on the seals.
Houston copies. Looks great. Thank you.
And a perfect call down right there, as that is the A-pass hatch that we were just mentioning that Nicole Ayers and team have opened up, and radioing down the status and condition of that hatch with no condensation reported.
This is The Drive.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
US President Donald Trump has weighed in on the victory of Indian descent socialist Zoran Mamdani's in New York City's Democratic mayoral primary election, calling him a 100% communist and lunatic, accusing the Democratic Party of having crossed the line. Now, Zoran Kavame Mamdani is the son of Indian origin immigrant parents. His mother is Padma Bhushan awardee filmmaker Meera Nair, who has Punjabi roots from Delhi and grew up in Odisha, while his father is an academic who is Ugandan but traces his roots to Gujarat. The ripples have been felt back home as well. BJP MP and politician Kangana Ranaut questioning Zoran Mamdani and how his Hindu identity from his mother's side has been wiped out. Abhishek Singhvi from the Congress party has also questioned Mamdani for the kind of venom he's been spewing against India, saying that when he opens his mouth, Pakistan's PR team takes the day off. My colleague Pallavi Ghosh is also joining us with more on this. Pallavi, across the aisle here in India, not many fans of Mamdani, because his past statements against not just the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but also Hindu community at large, and overall his diatribe against India is not garnering any fans in India.
Yes, absolutely. But Kangana Ranaut, I think, has best put it in very, very strong words, which would, of course, could stir a controversy. But with Abhishek Manu Singhvi also joining in just hours before Mamdani was elected as the mayor of New York, this goes on to show that across the political divide, there may be very few takers for Mamdani. However, there are some, if you look at the social media timeline, there are some who are celebrating his win, because then that's their politics. Their politics is that anyone who bashes the present Indian government and the Prime Minister does become their friend, and that is where Abhishek Manu Singhvi's word of caution comes in, that we should be very, very careful about who we choose as our friends. He's just a part of the Pakistan PR agency, machinery. That is how he comes across, and therefore one should not look upon him as a friend. Well, he's taken up some causes which are very, very close to what the Congress has also taken up in the past. For example, a complete condemnation of Israel, support of Palestine, also heart bleeding for what happened in Gaza. But his rest of the comments trashing the Hindu community has not gone down well, even within a section of the Congress party. So I think we're going to see a very nuanced response coming in from here. As of now, I don't see much of an official stand coming in from the Congress, which is hailing the win of Zohan Mamdani as the mayor of New York.
Yeah. Several people have in India questioned why, since he's playing up on this immigrant personality of his, especially in a state like New York, why does he not carry any lineage of his Hindu mother? But apart from that, Akansha Swaroop is also joining us. Akansha, Mamdani has also faced a lot of attacks from the Jewish community, which is very strong in New York, because he has been called anti-Semitic. He has famously declined to denounce, globalize the Infidada slogan of particularly the Palestine supporters, and that hasn't gone down with the Jewish community as well. Take us also through how in the democratic setup itself, it has raised a few alarm bells, how he managed to pull off this primary win.
Right, he's just a 33-year-old Democrat with severe leftist leanings, something he has been attacked for by the US President Donald Trump in that post he sent out just some hours ago. And he's now being counted in the league. Right, welcome back. Now, the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft carrying Axiom 4, the entire mission has successfully docked, and what we are bringing to you are live visuals from the ISS, where we can see the hatchet has been finally opened, and as you can see, NASA's arrival coverage is continuing from inside the ISS. As you can see, these crew members, 7 of them from Expedition 73, have gathered at the hatch throughout the time when it was being opened. They will accompany the 4 astronauts as they enter and soon after their arrival, they will be also delivering their welcome note. And what we can tell you in the latest update is that the hatch has been opened and the condition is also being given a green signal. There is no condensation being reported as far as the opening of the hatch is concerned. Dr. Sharma, the former Deputy Director at ISRO, and Srishti from the newsroom continue to stay with us. Dr. Sharma, why is hatch opening such a crucial and significant procedure in terms of the entry point for the crew?
Oh, very good question. Look, ISS is in the orbit, and it's inside conditions, the pressurization conditions and habitation conditions are different than just the hatch and outside the hatch. Okay, and the Crew Dragon, which is carrying the astronauts, which is coming from the Earth. Okay, and when it approaches the ISS and when it docks, it has to be ensured that the conditions of the astronauts should match with that of the ISS requirements. Therefore, their temperature, physical parameters, etc., they have to be ensured that they stabilize before they actually enter into the ISS. The conditions, the environmental conditions, I should say, broadly the environmental conditions that exist at the Dragon capsule exit and the entry of ISS, it has to be necessarily matched. This is one part. Second thing is that before entry into ISS, there is what is called as dress down for these astronauts. who will be thoroughly, thoroughly managed in terms of their physical parameters and the vital parameters, and also in case required to be given any supplements in terms of their energy supplements, etc. They will be, supplemented, and also they will be given a complete briefing of the activities in the ISS. There will be exchange of information between the captain and the commander of ISS, the commander of the module, the Dragon module,
right.
And they will ensure that all the parameters and the harmony is existing before actually they enter into it. And they physically, mentally, psychologically, I would say that I will put it in one sentence that they will be stabilized before they enter into ISS.
All right. So temperature stabilization is extremely important and crucial right now that the hatch has been opened. We'll continue that discussion with Dr. Sharma and Srishti. For now, we're slipping into a quick break. Stay tuned to our live and rolling coverage as these visuals from inside the ISS get streamlined. Remember, the docking has already happened of the Dragon spacecraft. Stay tuned to Nation at 5.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
US President Donald Trump has weighed in on the victory of Indian descent socialist Zoran Mamdani's in New York City's Democratic mayoral primary election, calling him a 100% communist and lunatic, accusing the Democratic Party of having crossed the line. Now, Zoran Kawame Mamdani is the son of Indian origin immigrant parents. His mother is Padma Bhushan awardee filmmaker Meera Nair, who has Punjabi roots from Delhi and grew up in Odisha, while his father is an academic who is Ugandan but traces his roots to Gujarat. The ripples have been felt back home as well. BJP MP and politician Kangana Ranaut questioning Zoran Mamdani and how his Hindu identity from his mother's side has been wiped out. Abhishek Singhvi from the Congress party has also questioned Mamdani for the kind of venom he's been spewing against India, saying that when he opens his mouth, Pakistan's PR team takes the day off. My colleague Pallavi Ghosh is also joining us with more on this. Pallavi, across the aisle here in India, not many fans of Mamdani, because his past statements against not just the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but also Hindu community at large, and overall his diatribe against India is not garnering any fans in India.
Yes, absolutely. But Kangana Ranaut, I think, has best put it in very, very strong words, which would, of course, could stir a controversy. But with Abhishek Manu Singhvi also joining in just hours before Mamdani was elected as the mayor of New York, this goes on to show that across the political divide, there may be very few takers for Mamdani. However, there are some, if you look at the social media timeline, there are some who are celebrating his win, because then that's their politics. Their politics is that anyone who bashes the present Indian government and the Prime Minister does become their friend, and that is where Abhishek Manu Singhvi's word of caution comes in, that we should be very, very careful about who we choose as our friends. He's just a part of the Pakistan PR agency, machinery. That is how he comes across, and therefore one should not look upon him as a friend. Well, he's taken up some causes which are very, very close to what the Congress has also taken up in the past. For example, a complete condemnation of Israel, support of Palestine, also heart bleeding for what happened in Gaza, but his rest of the comments trashing the Hindu community has not gone down well, even within a section of the Congress party. So I think we're going to see a very nuanced response coming in from here. As of now, I don't see much of an official stand coming in from the Congress, which is hailing the win of Zoran Mamdani as the mayor of New York.
Yeah. Several people have in India questioned why, since he's playing up on this immigrant personality of his, especially in a state like New York, why does he not carry any lineage of his Hindu mother? But apart from that, Akansha Swaroop is also joining us. Akansha, Mamdani has also faced a lot of attacks from the Jewish community, which is very strong in New York, because he has been called anti-Semitic. He has famously declined to denounce, globalize the Infidada slogan of particularly the Palestine supporters, and that hasn't gone down with the Jewish community as well. Take us also through how in the democratic setup itself, it has raised a few alarm bells, how he managed to pull off this primary win.
Right, he's just a 33-year-old Democrat with severe leftist leanings, something he has been attacked for by the US President Donald Trump in that post he sent out just some hours ago. And he's now being counted in the league of leading Democrats who are seen as rising stars like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So having said that, Shivani, important to highlight when you talk about how he's called for a globalized intifada, he's taking up for the cause of the pro-Palestinian protests. He's also gone on to declare so much so that because of the ICC warrants that were issued against Benjamin Netanyahu, if Netanyahu ever arrives in New York City and if Mamdani happens to be the New York City's mayor that time, he will even go ahead and arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. So such have been his remarks and statements, extremely controversial. What's extremely vexing for Indians is that during his entire election campaigning, he's really not played up the India story. In his defense, he says his roots, he was born in Uganda. His naturalized citizenship then happened when he moved to America. His wife is a Syrian artist. His father is a Muslim who happens to have roots in Gujarat. And that is why he's played up on that entire angle where he said that he's vexed as a Muslim who has roots in Gujarat, and he's also alluded to the riots in Gujarat, which is why he's even gone ahead to make extremely controversial remarks by comparing Prime Minister Netanyahu and his war in Gaza with even Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He's made certain remarks in Welcome back. Staying with our live and rolling coverage of the docking that's already taken place of the Dragon spacecraft. We're bringing to you those live visuals of this historic feat that's been managed from inside the ISS. Remember, most importantly, the hatch has finally been opened to welcome the crew inside the ISS. Why is that important? We take that discussion forward with Dr. Sharma, former Deputy Director of ISRO, and Srishti, who continue to stay with us from the newsroom. Srishti, to begin with, we all know the hatch, the opening of the hatch will also mark the arrival of the crew, the equipment, and of course the supplies. But what apart from that? Srishti, can you hear me?
Yes, so this is a very critical exercise as we have been talking about and waiting patiently ever since the docking was completed at 4:01 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Now the process which is on is opening of the latches, and of course to maintain that kind of pressure. And as we were talking about, it's very essential that the pressure at in the International Space Station, the vestibule and the SpaceX Dragon has to be really optimum, so that the crew members, once they enter the International Space Station, they do not experience those fluctuations, and that is why they are all these parameters are being constantly being checked, and it will be followed by safety checks as well before the actual the actual entry of all the four crew members happen. And then we'll get to see some really happy visuals of all these 4 crew members being greeted by the Expedition 73 crew, which is at the International Space Station. Remember, there are already 7 astronauts at the International Space Station there.
Right. Dr. Sharma, when we talk about the ISS, many say that it is also now a place which is a symbol of international space collaboration. Yes, you are already seeing commercialization happen as well, but when we look at rather a democratic access to space, this is what the ISS also symbolizes. I'd like your thoughts.
Of course, yes. If you see, the ISS was, made or it was installed during 1998, and the 5 countries got involved in that: Russia, America, Canada, then Europe, and like this. So the collaboration had been so extensive that they could make 16,000 square foot of usable area. It has about 37 modules. And it has, it is like a, as we have been always saying, it is like a football stadium where you have for the astronauts a kitchen, toilet, bath, and also it has, a place for the sleep, like a bedroom, etc., etc. Is there for comfort of the, astronauts who stay there for days and days. People have stayed there for 300 days plus, etc. This is one part. Second part is that the major portion of the ISS is also laboratory. If you see, there is chemical laboratory, there is mechanical laboratory, there are physical laboratories, and also there are biological experiment laboratories, and there are coating, there are what we call it as in mechanical engineering, coating of different metals, materials, etc. for the various strength and reliability, etc. The coating experiments are also possible in ISS. Look, there are several, applications in the ground where we need, vacuum, and we have to create vacuum for doing certain parts or certain instruments or certain equipment. For that, we spend, fortune for creating those vacuums for doing those. Now that if you have a laboratory in space, and if we are able to do such of those equipments or the parts or the materials or those aspects in the space, it really it is worth doing it instead of creating vacuum in Earth, which is so expensive.
Right.
First part. Second part is that if you see this particular mission is also, we have 60 experiments, and there are 30 countries which are involved in this. And of course, we have 7 experiments which are to be done by Shubhanshu Shukla. But we are open to get the results of all the experiments which are being done in ISS, including the remaining 53 experiments which are being done by other astronauts and other space agencies. And generally, I should tell you that there is a good cooperation among the spacefaring nations, Russia, America, Japan, then Europe, Canada, UK. There is very good cooperation, coordination to share and care, because space is something which is very, very unique, which is unpardonable, and the experience and uncertainties, you would have already seen in this mission, uncertainties are something which are really, really, something which need to be managed. So such of those experiences are also really very important in such of these missions, where the cooperation is there among various nations in terms of launch, in terms of experiments, and in terms of taking up such of those activities.
I'm very curious to ask you what this is going to mean for India and India's space race in the years ahead. But before I do that, I want to bring in Shrishti on a very critical note. Shrishti, much is also being talked about how space travel impacts the health, the overall health of astronauts, which is why I want to know from you, what will be the concerns for Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla and of course the other astronauts who are accompanying him as well, given that on Earth we see much lower levels of radiation, but in space that's not the case. There are concerns that the health of the astronauts is also going to be impacted. Not to forget, the radiation levels, as we also told you, are higher in space, and the team is going to be spending 2 weeks. So what are going to be the concerns when it comes to the health of these astronauts in space?
Yes, Akansha. So see, every time anybody enters microgravity, the conditions are very different. There's no gravity there, so the impact on your body is definitely there. But I do not think that we need to really worry about either Group Captain Shukla or the 3 crew members, because they're going to be there for 14 days. So this is considered to be a short duration mission, because most of the astronauts aboard the ISS spend much longer. Now, if you remember, just a few weeks before, we all were discussing how Sunita Williams, how her extended stay at the International Space Station kind of impacted her health.
Right.
So the conditions, like you rightly pointed out, definitely. So when you stay in microgravity for a longer duration, it tends to affect your muscle growth and the way your muscle regenerates. So the astronauts tend to lose a little bit of muscle. There is weight loss, and of course there are other ways they have to adapt to the situation. Now, in this case, Group Captain Shukla and the other 2 astronauts from Hungary and Poland, Tibor Kapu and Swallow Osanki, they are there for the very first time. So it will be a new experience for them, and all that data is also being collected as part of the various experiments. Remember, some of these experiments are also keen to study how...
I'm so sorry to interrupt you there, Srishti. Given that this is going to be a 2-week expedition, you've rightly highlighted the concerns may perhaps be not as much as they were for Sunita Williams, but we can expect the crew to arrive anytime now. But for now, let's slip into a quick break before they are all welcomed.
This News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
US President Donald Trump has weighed in on the victory of Indian descent socialist Zoran Mamdani's in New York City's Democratic mayoral primary election, calling him a 100% communist and lunatic, accusing the Democratic Party of having crossed the line. Now, Zoran Kavame Mamdani is the son of Indian origin immigrant parents. His mother is Padma Bhushan awardee filmmaker Meera Nair, who has Punjabi roots from Delhi and grew up in Odisha, while his father is an academic who is Ugandan but traces his roots to Gujarat. The ripples have been felt back home as well. BJP MP and politician Kangana Ranaut questioning Zoran Mamdani and how his Hindu identity from his mother's side has been wiped out. Abhishek Singhvi from the Congress party has also questioned Mamdani for the kind of venom he's been spewing against India, saying that when he opens his mouth, Pakistan's PR team takes the day off. My colleague Pallavi Ghosh is also joining us with more on this. Pallavi, across the aisle here in India, not many fans of Mamdani because his past statements against not just the Prime Minister Narendra Modi but also Hindu community at large and overall his diatribe against India is not garnering any fans in India.
It's absolutely, but Kangana Ranaut, I think, has best put it in very, very strong words, which would, of course, could stir a controversy. But with Abhishek Manu Singhvi also joining in just hours before Mamdani was elected as the mayor of New York, this goes on to show that across the political divide, there may be very few takers for Mamdani. However, there are some, if you look at the social media timeline, there are some who are celebrating his win because then that's their politics. Their politics is that anyone who bashes the present Indian government and the Prime Minister does become their friend, and that is where Abhishek Manu Singhvi's word of caution comes in, that we should be very, very careful about who we choose as our friends. He's just a part of the Pakistan PR agency, machinery. That is how he comes across, and therefore one should not look upon him as a friend. Well, he's taken up some causes which are very, very close to what the Congress has also taken up in the past. For example, a complete condemnation of Israel, support of Palestine, also heart bleeding for what happened in Gaza, but his rest of the comments trashing the Hindu community has not gone down well even within a section of the Congress party. So I think we're going to see a very nuanced response coming in from here. As of now, I don't see much of an official stand coming in from the Congress, which is hailing the win of Zoran Mamdani as the mayor of New York.
Yeah. Several people have in India questioned why, since he's playing up on this immigrant personality of his, especially in a state like New York, why does he not carry any lineage of his Hindu mother? But apart from that, Akansha Swaroop is also joining us. Akansha, Mamdani has also faced a lot of attacks from the Jewish community, which is very strong in New York, because he has been called anti-Semitic. He has famously declined to denounce, globalize the Infidada slogan of particularly the Palestine supporters, and that hasn't gone down with the Jewish community as well. Take us also through how in the democratic setup itself, it has raised a few alarm bells, how he managed to pull off this primary win.
Right, he's just a 33-year-old Democrat with severe leftist leanings, something he has been attacked for by the US President Donald Trump in that post he sent out just some hours ago. And he's now being counted in the league of leading Democrats who are seen as rising stars like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So having said that, Shivani, important to highlight, when you talk about how he's called for a globalized intifada, he's taking up for the cause of the pro-Palestinian protests. He's also gone on to declare so much so that because of the ICC warrants that were issued against Benjamin Netanyahu, if Netanyahu ever arrives in New York City and if Mamdani happens to be the New York City's mayor that time, he will even go ahead and arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. So such have been his remarks and statements, extremely controversial. What's extremely vexing for Indians is that during his entire election campaigning, he's really not played up the India story. In his defense, he says his roots, he was born in Uganda. His naturalized citizenship then happened when he moved to America. His wife is a Syrian artist. His father is a Muslim who happens to have roots in Gujarat. And that is why he's played up on that entire angle where he said that he's vexed as a Muslim who has roots in Gujarat, and he's also alluded to the riots in Gujarat, which is why he's even gone ahead to make extremely controversial remarks. Welcome back. Staying with our live and rolling coverage from inside the ISS. We are bringing you these live visuals as, remember, the docking of the spacecraft of Dragon, SpaceX's Dragon, has finally happened. And what you can see over there are visuals from inside the ISS, which are being live streamed by NASA as that hatch has been opened. And what you're witnessing right now are historic visuals of those 4 astronauts which have finally arrived. And indeed, history in the making. Remember, they are going to be over here on ISS for 14 days, and ISRO has in fact secured a seat for Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla over there, where he will also be accompanying his crew members to conduct some very significant experiments. And ISRO has said that it wants to launch the country's first ever human space flight in 2027. Not to forget, setting up our own space station by 2035 and send an astronaut to the moon again by 2040. And so this entire mission is going to be very, very significant. Historic visuals coming in for you.
The 4th and final member of Axiom Mission 4, representing Hunor in the nation of Hungary, their first visit to the International Space Station as well. Great big hugs and handshakes across all members of Expedition 73. And Axiom Mission 4 is Anne McLean and Nicole Ayers of NASA, along with Johnny Kim, Kirill Peskov, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Alexei Jabritsky of Roscosmos, and Takuya Onishi, commander of Expedition 73 and of JAXA, with handshakes and hugs for Peggy Whitson, Shubhanshu Shukla, Sławomir Uznański-Wisniewski, and Tibor Kapu. And with their arrival to the International Space Station, that now makes 288 visitors to the orbiting laboratory. Axiom Mission 4 is now aboard the International Space Station. Commander Peggy Whitson, in her return to the orbiting laboratory, her 5th flight. 3 is a member of NASA, and her 2nd as commander of Axiom, an Axiom Space private astronaut mission, commander of Axiom 2 and here of Axiom 4. Regaling the crew with smiles and stories. To her left, or our left from her viewpoint, to her right, Sławomir Uznański-Wisniewski of ESA, Shubhanshu Shukla to her left of ISRO, and Tibor Kapu on that far right-hand side of our viewpoint. The crew is safely aboard the International Space Station. Welcome again to Axiom Mission 4.